Hey everyone, how you doing today? Thought I would show you some new iterations of that ship I've been working on. Been kind of messing with that a little bit, but to start with, on my last video, I was pointing out some new bugs and things like that, and I gotta say I'm quite pleased right now because I respawned this Proxima. I believe there's another patch. The texture alignment issue seems to be gone now, and everything's back to normal, which is really good. I probably jumped the gun on complaining about some of that stuff. Sorry about that. Didn't want to sound overly pessimistic. I was just, I think, especially annoyed that particular morning when I was doing the video, seeing the new bugs and things like that. So texture alignment seems to be fixed. The lights, spotlights also seem to be fixed. They actually work again and they're coloring correctly. And if I hop in here, they turn them on, they do turn on again. So that seems to be completely fixed and back to normal as well. So very happy about that. And one last thing I'm noticing, and I haven't confirmed this, I haven't done enough testing with it, but right now it seems that the glass is paintable again correctly. So, or the armored glass is. That was kind of messed up for a while now. So that also seems to have gone away. So yeah, pretty good, pretty good. So like those were like three like things. None of them were like gameplay disruptors, but you know if you're trying to build stuff and all these things are kind of messing up like that, it would hit a creator more than it would someone playing the game or someone that's doing a lot of building because they were kind of pretty nasty bugs for someone trying to build spaceships and whatever. So I just wanted to show you that first. And again, I was probably overly harsh when I was talking the last time. Um, I'll try to refrain from doing that kind of thing in the future again, unless you know it proceeds for a long time. But maybe I shouldn't jump the gun if it's like I just noticed it that morning. I was just kind of I think fairly upset because there was ongoing issues, and then all of a sudden I seen a couple more. Again, pretty big issues for a designer in the game. So things like that. Anyway, I've got some different iterations of the ship, and I sort of finished up the hull, but I'm really messing with this thing now. Now, it's kind of a weird design. So on this one, from the last time I showed it, I had this weird cut in over here. I sort of cleaned that up a little bit, and I did finish up the back side of the ship, at least, you know, the first run of blocks and things like that. I did kind of work out a landing zone on the bottom for top mountable creations. That did run into a problem, though. Something I didn't really think about. I was like, yeah, that'd be a great spot to land stuff. And then I'm kind of wondering, I'm like, why haven't I done that on any past ships? And I'm just like, oh, I know why I didn't do that on past ships. Because how in the heck are you going to do the ramps? The only way back here is really from the back of the ship. And, you know, you need ramps to get things up into the hangar. And you can only have a sensor to detect you know, a vehicle or player out there to open up the ramp doors, and it's totally not going to know if you're going to want to park below or above. So that is, so every time you come up here with a vehicle, even if you intended to dock on the bottom, these ramps would come down in your face and block your way, so you could get up in there. And I don't necessarily have a solution for that. So, you know, I could put in some kind of weird manual switch or something like that. So, but that would be weird too because you would expect, you know, when you roll up with, say, your HV tank or something and you want to park in the hangar, um, or if you want to park down here, there's no way to let the game know, you know, that hey, I want to park down here and not up there. So that's kind of an issue, and I don't exactly know how to get around that one unless, yeah unless there's a manual switch, I mean, to adjust the way it goes, but that would be really weird. And I usually try to keep, you know, you'd expect the hangar door and the ramps to come down automatically when you roll up into it. You don't want to, like, get out of your vehicle and hit a switch somewhere or something like that and then hop back in so you could direct where you're going to land. So I don't really have any solution for that one, and I'm not sure if this whole method's going to work because of that. You know, even with the the logic in the sensors and stuff like that, I don't think there's really a way to tell, you know, the game would never know what your intent was if you intended to park in the bottom or in the hangar. So that's kind of a problem. So anyway, this one over here was kind of that revamped version a little bit, kind of finished up on the body. This one I just I made it a little bit shorter because I still have some issues with the body design on this one. It's kind of weird. It's kind of long, and I don't know. I'm trying. It's trying to do like kind of three different building styles, kind of like slammed into one creation, or at least two. The center section was kind of, although I don't mind it, it just doesn't necessarily fit with the rest of the ship. So then I tried another version over here where I basically chopped out a lot of that center area and made it not as big, basically. But problem with that is I really want the space. I really want the space. I want to fit a lot of shield parts. I want to fit stuff in this. Although I think because it being a little shorter in this one, it does actually look a little bit like it fits together better. So yeah, it's just a different thing. So the next iteration over here, I kind of worked on it some more. And this one, I smoothed this out even more on the sides, and I changed the roundy part over here to a more square part to try to match the body line that flows across the front of the ship over here, at least until it gets to about the back of the ship. So it's a little bit more uniform and consistent on this one. So then I'm like, well, you know, maybe what's really throwing me off is it looks like it's kind of like an SV. It looks like it's going to be a smaller fighter type creation from the front, but all of a sudden it's this big long thing that doesn't necessarily fit with that kind of bridge, you know, or that kind of cockpit area. So I'm like, well, let's mess with that. So I came up with another version here, and this one I totally redid the entire cockpit area and went with a different design. It's a little bit bigger, it's a little rounder, it sits up a little bit higher. I had to rearrange some of the turret positions as well, elevate some of them. And I'm just trying to figure this one out. Now, this is kind of a weird creation for me too, because there's parts of it I like, and then there's parts of it, well, most parts I kind of like in one way or another, but the big problem with this one is trying to get the consistency throughout the ship so the whole thing looks right together, and that's where I think I was really failing on this one. It's like it's too many different ideas of the design, I think, meshed into one thing, and now I'm trying to get some form of uniform consistency across the entire ship, and then, you know, try to figure out what kind of cockpit area would look the best with it and things like that. And this fighter design, I think the big problem with that is if this was a smaller ship with maybe some wings or something like that, I think this would feel and look pretty good, like it should be there. But I'm kind of forcing it on a ship that I don't think it necessarily looks very good with. It's too long. It's just not really hitting the specs on it. So changing it more to some other kind of cockpit design, I think, helps a little bit. But I mean, there's elements of this other cockpit I really like too. But one of the strong points I do like, though, is I kind of like this lower section and how the bridge kind of fits above that. I especially like the looks of the ship from like the lower angle and some of these side angles kind of like looking in there. But I actually, in some regards, like the older cockpit design better because it looks more like some kind of fighter jet, but it's just too big of a ship, too long of a ship to really feel in sync with that. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I was also thinking about potentially just blowing away the back end of the ship and starting again as well, or making an alternative variation of that. I got this big metal piece, this big piece that comes down here to hold turrets too, and I keep on debating whether or not that would look neat if it came down just a little bit more yet and actually provided the front landing gear. It would look more like a leg, which, see, I I like the leg ships, and I started out when I built doing some leg ships like the Manicore and Cerberus early on, and I think they look really neat when they're landed on the ground. The problem I have with the leg ships like that, especially if they're using larger legs, is they look kind of strange flying in space because you can't retract the legs or anything like that, and or, you know, big block structures for the legs on it. But I think they look really cool sitting on the ground. But it's just flying in space. You know, like if you see a Cerberus or Manicore flying in space, it looks kind of strange because of the legs, and that's kind of why I sort of got away from legged creations shortly after the Cerberus, sort of remakes of the Cerberus later on. I didn't pursue that so much more because, again, I just don't think it looks very interesting, or it looks strange flying in space. But I always liked the look when it was sitting on the ground. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm trying to think on what to do with the body. I'm not sure if I should try to run with this and actually start to work out the interior yet. I've been holding off on even touching the interior until I feel that I'm okay with the body. And right now, I mean, the only other thing I can think to do on this particular design right at the moment is maybe try something again different on the back and not go with this particular angle design for the thrusters. But then I feel in some ways it would end up, you know, the alternative would be to have some kind of thruster podge or something like that kind of coming out of the creation. But then I fear that it's going to look too much like the Kovics. Let me find that in my list here. The Kovics I had, you know, I like this ship, but I think I made an error with this ship too. And it's basically, I like these thruster housings, but I just think they would look so much better if they were flipped the other way around. And I think a lot of other people would agree with that one too. They look like they're upside down. But like this ship would not be that unique from this ship. It's a different design, but yeah, I don't know. You know, it's like it's kind of looking a little similar between the two, I suppose. It's a little bit different, especially if I went with some kind of like thruster design, you know, hopefully not inverted looking the way this one does, but off to the sides, which was another idea. This is a little more efficient with blocks, though, and because this is part of the interior, you know, you can kind of carve into that a little bit on the inside. And don't have to waste as much room as doing it this way. So, yeah, just a bunch of things I'm thinking about right now on this. I really want to try to get the body done differently. I want it to look unique from other ships that I've done in the past, and it still would look quite a bit different than the Kovics, I suppose. I mean, the Kovics was it's got a different kind of everything about it, but the overall shape and the general layout of the design would be pretty similar, though, is the thing. So yeah, I don't know. Like some angles, like seeing this ship from the front on view, I kind of like to see that rear section there with the angles. But then other areas, it's just like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should try something different. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm just kind of curious on your thoughts and opinions on that. If you like it, you know, again, I'm kind of like it's a bit of a mixed bag for me because I like most of the individual elements of it. It's just I don't know if they are still fitting together right, you know. And if you have like three really cool cars that you try to put into one car, it'll probably look really strange because, you know, they're going to have different things going on. And this still feels that way. I'm trying to get it more consistent with body lines and things like that, but I'm not so sure about the back end of the ship, the way it's sitting, if that is the right kind of back end you'd want on a ship like that. But it is a fairly efficient design with the amount of blocks used versus the amount of parts and thrusters and stuff that's on the ship and connected to the ship, in which you could use some of that interior space as like hangar space, or, you know, places for production or cargo extensions or whatever. it's more efficient than doing something like what I did over here, because you got just extra blocks, and you got like if you think about it, there's a double wall, because there's a wall over here that I had to block off, and then there's a wall over here that I had to block off. With a design like this, there's only one outside wall, and there's not an inside wall that you got to do that with. So it saves a little bit of material cost and a little bit of weight in this approach. And of course, I want to make this thing, as light as I can. For the most part, so it's maneuverable. So the smaller thrusters it does have make it work really well. Last video also, I don't think I showed the CPU on this. I meant to, but the current CPU, and this is with the 8 artillery launchers, and I still believe it has 16 cannon turrets on here, a couple of these sentry guns. They don't cost much CPU, and it does have the 5 or the 2x2x6 generator in there, some fuel tanks and that kind of thing. But anyway, the CPU is coming out to this number here, and keep in mind it doesn't have a warp core, it doesn't have a shield in it, or the shield parts, or the better guns. But yeah, there's a lot of room for fluctuation though with CPU, even with that said. And because all the turrets aren't retractable, means I can remove them. Anyone I feel I want to remove, at least stock, to free up CPU, as well as all the artillery guns or the launchers in here. So I would have a lot of CPU fluctuation on it. So this is like the one creation in a while that I haven't really been like stressing about the CPU on, which has been, especially if you're trying to not go above 2.1 million CPU for a combat type of ship, and those are usually a little bit more stressful build because of you want to get a good amount of weapons on it. You want it pretty tough. You got to have you typically want to have some pretty good performance with how it flies and things like that. And the whole saving grace on this one is the fact that it's light, and I don't need XL thrusters to move it around nicely. Even at this, with the hull finished, all the blocks on the hull finished, no interior yet, but it's looking pretty good on the numbers yet. The only number that I might want to improve is its lift. And what I did on this one as well is it's got 2 larger lift thrusters in the very back over here. And I kind of had room. I was originally going to dump another set of the same kind of thruster next to it, which would provide plenty of lift for this ship. But then that would look dumb. It would have the Nemesis crisis. Now, what I mean by that is when you see a ship like this flying in the air and it only has its lift thrusters, say on the very back, visually speaking and physically speaking or physics-wise, you would think that this thing would just belly flop when you try to lift off the ground. It would have all this thrust force on the back of the ship, which would push it back in the air and nosedive it into the ground. So instead of doing that, I put in some other medium-sized thrusters way up here and some more over here, which I don't particularly like using these smaller thrusters, but it distributes the thrust across the bottom of the ship and no longer looks like it would nosedive into the ground. And I made that mistake on the old Nemesis, where it only had its thrusters originally on the very back, and when you see it flying in the air, it doesn't look right, because if you start thinking about physics and stuff, it would just be like that wouldn't work. That would crash the ship into the ground. It would braze the back end and smash the nose into the ground, where this way it looks like it could balance out the thrust when it was lifting, so it goes straight up rather than spin around in a circle or something. So that's kind of why I went that way. So I'm just, again, always curious on your thoughts on this. Would you like me to try anything different? I'm kind of half thinking about just chopping a good chunk of the ship out and just trying to rebuild it from scratch. But, overall the design works to make to have about the right amount of room in it, and for its capabilities and what I'm trying to build as it is. And some other designs of having thruster pods, something similar to this, would be more costly for the creation. It would add more blocks to it in this case versus what I'm doing here. And of course, ultimately add a little bit more weight to it as well, but could look kind of decent. It's just I didn't want to mimic what I was doing over here either. I was trying to be different on this one. Well, anyway, that's all I've got for today. And yeah, again, very happy about the fixes in the game. I think that's going to be a really nice thing. I was really worried. There was the armored glass thing's been going on for a while, and then I got pretty upset pretty quickly when I seen more issues on top of that. It was just crossing the threshold for it, and I didn't expect it honestly to be fixed this quickly. I figured this was going to go on for a couple weeks at least. Yeah, I come back and it's like, hey, it's already fixed. I'm like, okay, so that's good. And again, if I see big, quick, glaring bugs like that again, I'll try to be a lot nicer about it. I guess my big point though is, I kind of wish a lot of that stuff would remain in the experimental version, maybe a little bit longer before they go to the main version of the game. So you can at least count on the main version of the game working. If they're adding, and I love that they're adding in features and working on the game yet, which is wonderful. It's just it would be nice, to have a little bit of peace of mind and consistency, knowing that at least the space stuff is working, and they're not going to put out a patch that's going to break it. At least for the non-experimental version of the game, as frequently as that seems to happen. So that's all I can really say about that. It's like I understand that they don't have like this giant crew. They're not like a big software company or anything like that has a whole team of beta testers and a whole team of this and a whole team of that. But they do have the experimental branch of the game, in which if you sort all this stuff out in the experimental branch and you all these things are gone and you let that ride for a little bit of time even after that, and then you update the main version when you're pretty satisfied that it doesn't have all these little bugs and glaring issues in it, I think it would be much better off than all these bugs with the glass, with the spotlights, with the texture changing, and other things. There's some other bugs too. One have ever come to the main gameplay, and then someone like me wouldn't be complaining about it. I wouldn't know until the actual real patch came in that hopefully didn't have any of these bugs and problems in it, and it wouldn't need like all these incremental patches right after that to try to fix these up. But again, I'm really glad that it was fixed and addressed and fairly quickly and noticed. So it's no longer an issue with the biggest concerns I had. And right now, and I don't know the status on some of the other bugs with like the elevators and stuff like that. I know they seem really weird when you're trying to go up and down them, kind of jonking your view all over the place and tilting you, and it's just kind of frustrating in gameplay to go up and down an elevator. I don't know the status on that one. Maybe that's been looked at as well. It didn't used to be that way. It was like something changed. Some number, some calculation. I couldn't say exactly what changed, but it didn't used to be like that. But anyway, that's all I've got for today. I do want to do some like creative building for videos too, and I've been thinking more and more about that. Of course, there's another challenge to build something else here, and I kind of wanted to kind of get that out of the way so I wasn't like stressing at the last minute about getting a ship ready in time again. But I didn't really have any plans to build another combat CV at this moment in time. But it's just coming off from the Klingon ship. Was like, well, yeah, that was cool, but this is kind of fun anyway. I mean, obviously, it's probably more beneficial to build useful stuff for the game as in artsy creative stuff. But, without that artsy creative stuff too, I don't know. It's I like the full package. Sometimes it's fun to build functional builds, and other times it's fun to build artsy builds. And if I wouldn't want to have to pick to just do one or the other and never touch the other type. I mean, that would be that would kind of take away a lot of things too. But I kind of want to do an artsy build again. I'm getting to that point. I've been trying to work on more functional builds for the last little bit, at least with that space station and the MX6 and this ship as well. And I guess the other ones were kind of functional, but they were, trying to be something else, trying to be not replicas, but heavily inspired by Star Trek franchise. Anyway, I'll shut up, and you guys have yourself a great day, and I will talk to you later.